Hello, everybody, and welcome back. So, in this video, I wanted to talk about having the end in mind for the percussion class that you're going to have to eventually teach. So here's the scenario that I wanted to give you all. So if you're a band director at a school and you just got handed the beginning percussion class, what do you do? So this course is really designed for those band directors out there who are teaching this class for the first time, or if they just want some feedback on like other ways to teach this class and like some of the things that should be covered within that first year of study for percussion. So I want you to be able to ask yourselves these questions whenever you're planning for the class, because if you don't know what you're supposed to be teaching, then it's really hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. So one of the things that has always been my guiding light is I always ask myself, what kind of repertoire can the students that are there already play? So if I'm working with a set of beginners, I'm looking at the seventh and eighth graders, or if I'm at a high school, I'm looking at the juniors and seniors and their playing level, and to see, okay, this is where the program, roughly the skill level is currently at, and then kind of jumping to the last question of like, what are my short term and long term goals for the program? So if I'm working with my sixth grade class and my long term goal is to be able to have them all stay in band, and whenever they're eighth graders, where their skill level should be. So that's kind of important to figure out what your short-term and long-term plans are and being able to get wherever you want to go. And so as the instructor, you need to figure out and write out like what are your strengths and weaknesses with your current knowledge. So I did this exact same process whenever I was teaching a beginning clarinet class for the first time during my student teaching, where I had to kind of assess what I knew and what I had questions about and what I felt comfortable teaching. The same thing applies for this as well. So, because most of you who are enrolled in this have already taken a percussion methods class of some kind, you can rely on some of that information to help you. In terms of remembering technique and being comfortable, knowing what to look out for. And as far as planning is concerned, I had actually included another lecture after this, which has like a sample template for about a semester's worth of instruction, and so you can use that template as just a starting off point to help you plan for this class. And again, the basic guiding light for me is where is the program at now? Let's figuring that out, and then also figuring out where you want to go. So if I'm trying to play music by John Mackey, or if I'm trying to have my honor band play a certain repertoire at a certain level, I want that to be my light at the end of the tunnel and be able to plan for that. So when you look at like the standard drum rudiments, or having all 12 scales, and you can do the major and minor, like those are all things that you can check off if that's the direction that you're trying to go in. So in this course, I simplified a lot of that to where if we're looking at this 26 standard American drum rudiments, we're really only having to look at a fraction of those, because it's almost impossible to try to get through everything you need to get through in their beginning year. So my plan was to really just kind of give you the absolute necessities that every teacher should be passing on to their students, especially in this first beginning year. Because if you are only teaching them common basic rhythms without being able to do flams, roughs, or rolls, it's really going to prohibit them from playing certain repertoire going forward. So one of the things that helps me in my program whenever I'm trying to get students to sign up for band for their sixth grade year is to do things like instrument petting zoos. So because percussion is like drums and really fun instruments, I try to bring those instruments whenever we're visiting elementary schools. And what always crosses my mind is picking instruments that make kids get really excited. And I know a lot of kids, whenever they were signing up for band, they liked the drums more so than the mallet instruments. And so whenever I did this last year, I brought a couple drums with me. I brought a snare drum and a bass drum, almost like a little drum set, and I was just doing little examples of playing for them, and I allowed the kids to play on the instruments as well, and a lot of them signed up for percussion because I did that. One of the things I wanted to note on here is if you're doing an instrument petting zoo and it's just not possible to bring instruments with you. One of the things I did in one of the previous years was I brought my iPad with me and used pictures of the instruments and talked about them and pulled up little YouTube videos with sound files. That way they could hear the instruments and just kind of get the best of that situation and be able to experience hearing and seeing some of these instruments for their first time and just having a better idea of what they're signing up for. One of the things that you will want to be aware of whenever you're advocating for your band class and having students sign up is that they're actually going to be having to compete for other electives, because a lot of the other faculty that teaches at elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, they all want students to enroll in their class so that way they just can have access to more opportunities for like field trips and funding and all that stuff. So you're really going to have to advocate for students wanting to be in band. So that's why it's super important to make it fun, because they will also have choices like art or athletics and all these other different types of music classes, maybe like a mariachi class or an orchestra class. So you really want to make sure that you can have a really solid plan for what you want your band program to look like and at what skill level, because a lot of students, they don't want to be a part of a bad band. They want to be a part of a band that's good and does a lot of things like field trips or plays cool music. And so having that fun factor in your program is super important. So one of the things that I've done in the past is I've had some of my seventh and eighth grade percussion play a little percussion piece for the fifth graders that were thinking about signing up for band, and a lot of them thought they were rock stars because they were playing cool drums and they got to see that for the first time. Okay, so kind of tying back to having your students do performances. Whenever we're doing recruiting trips of any kind, I always like to rely on my students, whether that's through the middle school students or for the high school students, and have them do performances for some of these kids that are looking at joining band. Because I think if you can delegate responsibilities and like know when it's appropriate, so that way, like, because there's been times where I've had to perform for incoming students, and I think it's better to have students do it versus teachers, because the students get to like see themselves in some of these older students, which is always great, and it kind of builds more of a bond between the students if you can do that. Figuring out the school's feeder system is also really important because you want to know where your kids are coming from. So I've seen programs where there really hasn't been much interaction between the campuses, which directly affects their numbers whenever it comes time for the fall. So I think it's really important to establish that connection wherever you're at. So if you're teaching beginners, then you want to make sure that you have contact with the elementary schools that are in your area. That way you can directly go to those places to see if you can have more kids sign up for band. And again, what's really going to help is if you can establish a network of some kind. That way you can get mentorship, professional feedback, and development. Some of those people can include past teachers, directors from other schools, previous mentors, clinicians in your areas, or colleagues from the universities that you may have attended in the past. Having that network is really important for recruitment ideas or for feedback on how you've planned your semester, getting some idea of how other people are teaching this same course, and just to get, again, like some confidence whenever you're doing this. So hopefully this helps you with planning and knowing some of the important things that I'd like for you to consider whenever you're teaching this class. Thanks.